Jim, all I ask is to
Meeting
have,
of January 11th.
all I ask is
We are being
emergency
recorded by our
repairs.
friends from PA. Thank you very much. And we're going to begin tonight with a student presentation. I guess what we call it. And I have Gil to tell us a little bit about this.
Great, thank you, and good evening. We have two representatives here this evening from our newly developed Tri-M chapter. We have Allie Townsberg, who is our president, and Abby Kramer, who's our secretary, as well as one of our students and students to play the French horn. So I'm going to turn it over to these lovely ladies to tell you a little bit about Tri-M before Anna's presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Allie Townsberg, and I'm a junior here at Silver Lake and one of the presidents of Tri-M Honor Society.
I'm Abby Kramer. I'm the secretary of Tri-M, and I'm a senior this year.
So we're part of Tri-M Honor Society, which is formerly known as Modern Music Masters, which is a high school and middle school honor society and a program of the National Association for Music Education. It is designed to recognize students for their academic and musical achievements and to provide leadership and service opportunities to young musicians, as well as strengthen music communities and foster a greater continued interest and emphasize the desire for excellence in musical performance. The current membership count is 38, and we are planning to induct more students in the spring.
Since the beginning of the school year, we have been working with the athletic department to provide live performances of the national anthem at many home games. We have also done many informal performances around the community, such as caroling and continuing the Luminary Band at the Kingston Luminaries and Holidays in Halifax, Breakfast with Santa, and singing the national anthem at the grand opening of the Halifax Walmart. Other Tri-M members have been working to learn from and feature Silver Lake alumni who are having successful careers in music-related fields. Co-president Lauren Masterpillow had a featured article in the Kingston Reporter highlighting the success of SLA graduate from 2005, Victoria Bridge, who is currently playing the leading role of Anna in Disney's Frozen Hyperion Theater in Disneyland, California, which is the article we have provided.
Our main goal is music advocacy, which is highlighting the importance of music education in our school. Tri-M members have been working with SL alumni Dan Felix to provide high school mentors with the beginning instrumentalist through Joy Music Program, which is run by the Kingston Recreation Department, but was originally started by Mrs. Johnson. Both Abby and I started playing our instruments in 5th grade and 3rd grade through this program. Without the joy of music, I would not have discovered my passion for music and definitely would not be as involved as I am now here at the high school.
Tonight we are excited to celebrate the success of one of our instrumental students. Anna has been playing the French horn for 5 years and began private lessons in 4th grade. In addition, Anna is a pianist and has been playing since the age of 4. Outside of school, she plays in the junior repertory orchestra at Boston Youth Symphony Orchestras. Last year, she was in New England Conservatory's Youth Brass Ensemble.
This year, she placed first chair in the orchestra for senior district, meaning she earned the highest score out of all the French horns as a freshman. She also received a recommendation to audition for All-States. This is Silver Lake's first instrumental All-State rep since Dan Felix in 2011. We congratulate Anna on all her accomplishments, and we're excited to showcase her tonight. Anna's success is a great example of starting instruments at a young age, and we're here to advocate for a time in the future where all students of Silver Lake Regional School District have the opportunity to begin instrumental lessons as a part of the elementary school music programs. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Anna Tunis. This evening she will be performing a piece called Mozart's Concerto No. 4.
That was wonderful. What is You know, I have to say, that instrument is so incredibly unique. And if you could hold it up just for a second, and I'm not familiar with it. So when you're playing, the air is flowing all through this intricate weaving. It's amazing the sound that you can create with that. You sound wonderful. Best of luck continuing with your music. What a treat. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great way to start budget season. Thank you. Why do we have a budget? Yeah. You could produce some positions down on our program. Okay, if I could ask the committee, if we could move a couple of things out of order, if you wouldn't mind. We do have a representative from our audit firm here. If we could, I would suggest that we put that up in the agenda.
Motion to take out of order.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll introduce it. Right now, we have Brady Connor here from our audit firm, Lynch Reading and Associates. We have recently received our community certification as of July 1, 2017. And Brady's here just to give us an update.
Okay, well, good evening. Thank you for having me here again this year to give you, or Joy and Christine asked me to give a little refresher to everybody, again, in regards to Department of Revenue's E&D, excess and deficiency, what that means to Massachusetts regional school districts, again, specifically to Silver Lake. So as you folks may know, that the E&D calculation is strictly Massachusetts Department of Revenue calculation. Okay, it's not in accordance with government generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, which we do the audit under. Okay, so it's a little different. It's specific to Department of Revenue. But why is it important? It's important to the regional school district budgetary process because it determines the amount of fund balance in reserves which can be retained and potentially used to fund your annual budget. Massachusetts General Law, it's provided for under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16B, 1/2, and it provides that every regional school district will maintain an excess and deficiency fund, E&D. It essentially represents unreserved fund balance, which excludes any amounts that you designate or encumber at year end. And Mass General Law puts a limit on unreserved fund balance that regional school districts may maintain. It's based upon the June 30th balance sheet that the school district has to submit to DOR on an annual basis. This year, they changed it to November 30th. Prior years, it's always been October 31st. If you don't file it, which the district did on time, the state may withhold state aid, but that's never happened with Silver Lake. So it's based upon the balance, as I said, it's based upon the balance sheet that's submitted, and they certify the E&D number as of July 1. So whatever number they certify, that may be used in whole or in part to fund the next year budget. Okay, E&D can't exceed 5% of the subsequent year operating budget in capital costs, and must be used as a revenue source. Okay, and it also has to be approved by the member towns. So again, it's got to be a budgeted source. You can't just use it, and it must be allocated. So if you exceed the 5%, you've got to reduce the subsequent assessments to the member towns in the subsequent year based upon their allocation. So how do they get to that number? Again, the starting point is the June 30th undesignated fund balance of the district. They subtract out any receivables, any overdrawn accounts, or any accounts or balance balance or deficit fund balances in any special revenue or grant accounts as of that date. The resulting number is the E&D number. The Department of Revenue now sends out with that number the calculation of how they get there. So as of the June 30th, 17 number, the district submitted an unreserved fund balance of $1,363,368. Aggregate receivables and some fund deficits were $67,331 to come down to the certified E&D of $1,296,035 as of 7/1/2017. So again, as you look at that number, you know, the district is within $30,000 of that 5% for fiscal 18. So it's a good number because you won't be able to have maintained, you know, held in reserve anything more than $1.3 million anyways. And as you know, for fiscal 18, the district budgeted $428,000 for capital improvements. So there's a quick overview of how the calculation works. Again, the district has been, hovering around that 5%, which again is, in my opinion, what you want to be able to do. You've got to have reserves and they come in handy when budgets get tight. So, overall, the district is doing pretty well with that number. So, any questions anybody wants to ask?
Grady, can you share any experience or thoughts on, we hover around the 5%. Is that pretty much what other school districts do, or?
Well, no.
Okay.
With my experience with the regional school districts that we audit and have audited over the years, it kind of runs the whole gamut. So I've got some districts that are probably double the size of Silver Lake as far as the budget, and they've got no reserves. It basically comes down to a budgetary process and being fiscally smart. Because and again, it affects the member towns, and sometimes the member towns in other districts don't necessarily see that, but everybody's in it together, so to speak.
Paul, for many years, we hovered around 2.5% to 3%. It's wonderful that what our administration has been able to do to build this back up. And thank you guys, of course, and certainly Jason, she has really been working a lot on it. And Christine is invaluable to us.
Anyone else? Comments, questions? Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks again for having us. Thanks for your time, Mary.
Next, actually, if the committee would entertain, perhaps we could take the budget out of order and begin tackling that discussion a little bit earlier.
Will we be able to get to anything else after that?
Will there be anybody else alive?
Well, that's why she wants to do it.
Yes.
We're all fresh, we're eager, we've got energy.
Want us to get along
The
afterwards?
sugar is starting to kick in, the caffeine's kicking in.
No, we're not going to get along afterwards.
Would,
I'll make a motion when you take it out of order.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty then. I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you. Well, thank you for taking it out of order. I think it is a fairly involved process to present the budget, so it will be a little bit easier as we're a little bit earlier in the evening. So everybody has received their budget book, and again, I have to tell you how proud I am of our students. I love the artwork that our students have done. And it's really come out beautiful. There are some books that we're going to be giving to the selectmen and finance that aren't here right now. If you wanted to just be able to at least appreciate the artwork, there's some extras up there. But I have to ask you to go back. But there are some full budgets over there. So the front cover, our teachers at both the middle school and the high school were kind enough to put together the artwork again this year. Jane Napolitano actually retired in November and helped us get started. And we also had Hannah Close and our teacher Sarah Butler and Erica McGee from the middle school. We also added middle school students this year. there, so I'm really excited about that. When we began building the budget, I just want to sort of start at the beginning, if I may. The budget has been built with the students' well-being and the education at the center. This fall, when we began preparing the budget, we have presentations by Marie Grable, who I just saw walk in, who is our Administrator of Special Education, who described our current student offerings and 2 new programs that we would like to add. I would like to ask the committee to take a vote on establishing these programs at the end of our presentation. Steve Pello, our Instructional Technology Director, came and he presented the technology needs of the district. Scott Farrell came, our science coordinator, and he presented information on adding STEM teachers in middle school, while Elliot Glass came and presented information on the Allied Health program. Both principals, Michaela Gill and Jim Dupiel, also spoke to the needs of their building. In particular, Michaela spoke about adding the bridge program at the high school. We discussed the school committee priorities over several months and this fall, and the budget has been built incorporating all those different presentations. Again, you've heard me use this before, but the building a budget is a puzzle. And there's a tremendous number of pieces that we have to fit in together, and we have to make sure they fit together correctly, and that nothing has been lost. And so, before I go any further, I have to tell you, Christine Healy is truly amazing, and without her, we couldn't survive. So, please give her a round of applause. You know, again, she is doing 5 completely standalone budgets, amid also all the normal bills, all the normal things. So it is truly an undertaking at our office to pull these off. In an effort to continue to be transparent with our budget building process, we've had all these discussions, we've had all these presentations. There is no magic mirrors, there's no wizard behind the curtain. These are all real numbers. But we also put together, I think, a beautiful and I hope very informative budget presentation. I've added several new pieces of information to the presentation this year. Some of them were based on questions you had last year and just some other additional ideas I had, as well as maintaining the categories we had last year. So when you open your book, again at the beginning there's an index which just goes through the different sections of the book. We listed all the students who were kind enough to allow us to use their beautiful artwork in the book. And we will send each of them an individual thank you letter, which I think they seem to quite like getting an official letter from our office thanking them for them to use their work. I also have to thank Lisa Turcott. Lisa puts all this together. Lisa has an incredible eye. She has got a background in graphic design, which is obvious when you look at this work. And you'll notice there's a little bit of a play, like when you look at enrollment, you'll notice it's all student pictures. So sort of have a sense of humor as you're looking at this, because there is some logic to the pictures that were chosen. When you turn into the enrollment section, we have our enrollment, which we've always had, and then on the back side, the assessment pictures. John Tuffy used to call it an eye chart. We then have 2 line graphs. The top graph is the number of students in grades K through 6 from each of the districts, and the second graph are the students grades 7 through 12. As you can see, we are having declining enrollment in all of the towns. But again, we are staying reasonably stable over the last several years. The second graph is a new graph, and the reason why I thought you might be interested in this is we're talking about adding a new vocational program, a new CTE program. I thought you might be interested in our children who are not staying with us, who are going to vocational programs, where they're at. So we currently have 18 students between the 3 towns that are in the different programs. And we have the Norfolk County Agricultural High School, that's NCAHS. We have South Shore Vocational Technical High School. We have Bristol County Agricultural High School. Those are the 3 programs where students are currently at. The grades that they're at and the number of students in the different programs. I thought it was sort of interesting information. So the students that are not going to our CTE programs, there's only 1 children currently that is not in an agricultural program, and they are in a computer info technology program. The rest of our students are staying with us, which I think really speaks to the great programs we have in district. The next one is based on a question I think actually Mary may have asked last year, was how many students do we have who are homeschooled? So we did a little research, and we put together the number of students over the last 10 years who have been homeschooled from the various towns. And we have it for K through 6, and we have it for 7 through 12. I think what's really interesting to note is we went from a high of 33 students who were homeschooled in 2012, and we are down to 12 students at this point on the 7 to 12 level that are homeschooled. Again, I think it speaks to the wonderful programs and opportunities we have here. It was interesting information we hadn't really thought to look at that before. The next one is our budget timeline. I love the sort of Seussical look to this. It just reminds me of Dr. Seuss. The timeline is here. The one thing I did want to mention is we have down listed that we were going to do a public budget hearing in March. We are going to try and hold it in February because I think having a budget hearing and then voting the budget the same night really doesn't truly speak to, if anybody did want to come and speak to a concern or an issue, it really would give us an opportunity to change the budget. So we're going to post it for February at this point in time, and that will be our official public budget hearing, if that's okay. Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Budget hearing would not necessarily be on the same night as our regular meeting? or-
We always have it on the same night. Yep.
We did, but in Kingston we didn't, right?
We always do. Yep. It's usually, it's the meeting that takes less than 5 minutes, nobody asks you a question, but it's a
Okay.
legal requirement.
Yep.
But sometime it could happen.
Okay.
That somebody would come and have a question or concern about the budget. Besides finances, it's like me. So, the special education PowerPoint, I think it was November, that Marie came and she did a very nice presentation for us. This goes into her presentation and talks about the different children in each of the towns, the programs we have, and it also speaks to the 2 programs that we would be interested in beginning here, one at the middle school and one at the high school. Then we go into the summaries. If it's okay, I'm going to sort of stop here for a minute, and I wanted to just go through my executive summary because I hopefully will be able to provide some helpful information to you. When we build the budget again, there's parts of the operating budget that have an impact on the bottom line, but that we cannot necessarily control. Some of them are building maintenance, health insurance. This year, I checked with both Halifax and Kingston. Both of them have put in 10% for health insurance. We have no definitive information. We're going to go with conservative 10% at this point in time. If we get information that we can lower that, which I would like everybody to keep everything crossed, we will do that. But at this point, we built in a 10% increase.
But last year, Joy, didn't it go up 12%?
Last year was 12, the year before 15.
So do we think 10 is?
10 is good based on talking to the town of Kingston and Halifax is what they're both using. I think the expectation is it may be lower, at least that's what I'm hearing, but I think just to be safe, they're doing 10, but I think Christine knows best.
And we're just going to say that I have been to the main 5 municipal meetings, and they are not saying a percentage. The information that we're using is coming over from the steering committee, and the steering committee, you're kind of the movers and shakers of moving this forward. So that seems like a conservative starting point.
Okay.
And again, both Halifax and Kingston are using 10%, so hopefully we'll all go down together. Holding hands, singing Kumbaya. We have utilities, which we can't control, transportation, the bus contract, salaries and benefits, retirement contribution and Medicare, special education, and of course, my personal favorite, state mandates. So we've talked about some new positions that we're interested in bringing into the district. I really have to thank both Jim and Michaela. We have spent a lot of quality time together looking at the budget. We are well aware of the town's concerns about us being fiscally responsible. So all of the programs we are interested in bringing in, we can bring in based on the 4 retirements that we have, okay? By keeping in those salaries, we can bring in these new positions. So I'm just going to try to go through and explain this a little bit to you, and hopefully it will help. So at the middle school, we have 4 retirement letters in hand, and so we're really excited that it gives us an opportunity to bring in some new programs. These are wonderful teachers, they're veteran teachers, we will miss them terribly, but it does give us an opportunity to make some changes that we think will be very beneficial to the school. So at the middle school, we are very interested in supporting STEM. program, to continue to build up our science program at the middle school. We have a reading teacher who is retiring. Instead of replacing that reading teacher, we'd like to use that position for a STEM teacher, a science teacher. The middle school is also, we have an adjustment counselor who is retiring. He's been with us a very lengthy period of time. Based on his salary, we should be able to hire 1.5 adjustment counselors. The reason we need the extra 0.5 adjustment counselor is to support the programs which will be at the middle school, those specialized programs that we're bringing in. They're going to need some additional supports for those. So again, that will provide some additional supports to our students, supports to our teachers, and again, it's not adding to the budget, it's just maintaining the salaries going forward. We also are, at the middle school, we have I lost my chart, sorry. We have another reading teacher who is retiring, and we will replace her. If you remember, we used half of her salary was funded through Title I last year. We'll be able to fund her again through Title I. If you remember last year, we talked about cutting a teacher. Instead, we ended up cutting some Title I tutors and using some of the funding for the reading teacher. We'll be able to maintain that position again through the grant supported. So we'll still have reading at the middle school, reading supports at the middle school for our teachers. We have a teacher who will be retiring in November of next year. She is a special education teacher who supports some of our math students, has been her focus area. Because we're having some drop in enrollment, we're going to be able to reconfigure our math teachers' schedules so that they'll be able to provide that support. And instead of replacing that position at the middle school, we're going to use it to fund the high school bridge program, the BRIGHT program that we talked about, to provide for those students who are coming back from hospitalization, some of our students that have concussions, who need those additional supports. So we would not replace the middle school position, we would put in the position at the high school. Okay? So it's a bit of movement. I apologize if I'm going too fast, but basically what we've done is we've maintained the salaries of the 4 retiring teachers. We've bought in the new programs without changing what would have happened if those teachers had stayed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The other piece is, and again, we've sort of done the math out, and Christine has approved, I did it correctly. It's always good to get a stamp of approval from Christine. We talked about our vocational program, that allied health program. If you remember, Elliott can fund the position 50% through the Perkins grant. We have enough money to pay for that balance from these 4 retirements.
Can I ask one clarifying
Sure.
question? Just because I think I didn't hear it correctly. The November retirement is a special ed teacher?
Yes, who supported our math students.
So supported the math students? Okay, that's what down came in,
She has
okay.
a dual certification, so she's in teach a few of our math classes.
So that's 4 benefit packages.
Okay, that's where you lost me. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
So what we were able to do by being creative and by playing very nice in the sandbox, which they do, is we've been able to fund the programs that we consider the biggest priority for our students and our staff by not cutting anything, but by moving things around. Okay, so I think it was a very creative way to hopefully fund what we consider to be our priorities for our students. Shifting resources, much better way of saying it. Thank
Same
you.
number of positions?
Same
Number of positions, more increase, decrease?
We're doing 1.5, we're doing a 0.5 extra.
Okay.
Because we're adding an adjustment counselor. And again, mathematically, it does work out.
And can we also just readdress for the sake of argument, in case nobody was paying attention last time or spoke to us, by having these programs in-house, we're saving the cost of potentially sending kids out of district, which would be profoundly more expensive than a 0.5 adjustment counselor.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
There are 2 other positions that have been talked about. One of them is a position that came up, and I think Jason may also speak to it a little bit better, but when Grady came and met with us, Grady is our auditor, one of the things that they've talked about for 4, 5, 6 years, maybe a dozen years, is that they are interested in us having a treasurer. The reason is they would like to have separation, and I speak to it a little bit in my summary, for when we're moving money, basically. What happens is, well, why don't you tell it?
The way that we're organized right now, we try to really adhere to the separation of duties. We try to make all that work, but we have limited bodies to do that. Because of my function, I need to stay as far away from possible as any cash implication. I have to keep myself removed from that. Currently what happens is tomorrow morning we go back after the meeting, everything's been approved, we're ready to move forward. Our accountant prepares the transfers, does the transfers for our payroll, and then also prepares the transfers based on tonight. Then our superintendent calls the bank and has to actually make the transfers. So we keep a daily cash log so that we know the money where we believe it is, and we're not colluding with one another to create some other situation. But we've always been able to maintain a separation of duties, but it's always been a concern for our auditors. They always note it in their management letter, and they're at the point where they want to move it from a management letter to a finding. And that's where we wanted to make sure that we brought Jeopardy's attention that we've agreed to disagree for all of these years, but we're at a point where agreeing to disagree is maybe not going to help us moving forward.
So one of the things we did was we did a little bit of research. So we wouldn't need a lot of time. We figured 10 hours a month. 10 hours a month would allow us to do the transfers and also the monthly.
We'd also have them review our
reconciliation.
monthly general ledger reconciliation and things like that. So there are things that they'd be able to do that would kind of give our auditors that assurance. And the outside world, so it would be completely transparent. So we've actually looked into that and looked into what other treasurers are getting. We looked at an hourly rate, and based on what we believe we were looking for right now, the 10 hours a month, it's
about $6,000
a year.
We're thinking $50 an hour, 10 hours a month, so it's about $6,000. I believe we could also fund that out of the retirements. You know, again, there's a little bit of wiggle depending on the level you hire people, et cetera. It's small change, but it is something that the auditors have spoken about a lot. It is not that they have any concerns about any questions of anything we're doing. It's the best accounting practices, is having that separation.
So for this limited number of hours, no benefits or anything?
No.
Is this a stipend position of another employee?
No.
No, it would be, you know who does it? Our retired business managers. It's a great little side or retired accountants.
It's also a person that works for the school committee.
Right.
Not for the superintendent.
Exactly. Go ahead, Jason.
So we sat down with Grady. I've been requesting some clarification on the role of treasurer since I became the treasurer. As you're all aware, I've made it very public that I'm uncomfortable with the position of treasurer being one of us, a citizen who doesn't necessarily have the time to commit to the process or the capability of understanding the numbers. I've invested quite a bit of time in this. I've approached MASC to ask them why there isn't any training. And at first, they were trying to tell me to try and ally myself with the town treasurers, but the jobs are incompatible. After talking to Grady, we found out that most regional school districts and most collaboratives don't have the privy to use a town treasurer, so they hire one themselves who works directly for the board or the committees. Grady made it very clear that I am literally personally liable for any malfeasance fiscally that happens in this district. I am at the point that I would recommend that none of us ever accept nomination for treasurer.
Sucker.
I will finish the term, but if we do not fund this position, I will not accept nomination in May. They run a credit check on me every single year. What if my credit was bad? How would that look? How would we report that back with saving face for the individual member? I'm lucky that right now we have Christine in the job, we have Joy, we have the safeguards in there, and good people taking care of our books.
So if we had a treasurer working for the committee, would they be coming to the committee meetings
10.
And is that, if they do, is that included in the 10 hours?
We could do that.
We can
could
make
do
the
that.
position how
The other
long.
thing we could do is have them be the treasurer, and the assistant treasurer could be a school committee member, was what Grady spoke about when we met. That's a fairly common way of doing it, is you would have a school committee member who would be the assistant treasurer and would read the number off the warrants.
And would the assistant treasurer have the same liabilities as Jason's talking about now?
I don't believe so. Do you know the answer to that, Jason?
What was the question?
Would the assistant make you any less liable?
Well, with the indemnity policies, I was assistant treasurer and treasurer. The treasurer's indemnity policy was far greater than the assistant treasurer's just because of the amount of time and access I have to the numbers figures. I've done physical transfers at banks for our district before, you know. I would recommend that if we hire someone as the treasurer, and we have a committee member be the assistant treasurer.
Well, I think that the liability question, I think, is a good one, that we should go back and get an answer. Now, so whoever accepts that role should know that.
The treasurers who do this is common practice throughout the state,
Yeah,
that business managers who have retired take on these part-time jobs. Sometimes they represent multiple school districts.
makes sense.
And they do a few hours a week for each of their districts, and they're competent in the numbers. They've done them themselves. They know what to look for.
Yeah.
They know the lingo.
Well, the person.
Now, I apologize. You've gone to a bank and made a transaction. Is the treasurer going to do that when it's necessary now?
Well, most of them can be done wired.
Now it's all
The
wired.
event
Now
that
it's all done
Jason's
by wire.
talking about
I was
something
closing
could
some
be-
accounts.
Yeah,
Was
was
that
that
when John
That's a
passed?
scholarship account.
That was when John passed.
When
All
Joe-
right, when Joe, I'm sorry, when Joe passed.
So we had some
Okay, I
scholarship
remember
accounts
that,
that
okay.
we needed Jason's intervention.
Okay, that was
But
your
I'm
name.
just saying, these are
Okay.
the types of things,
Yeah,
you know. Christine's been very kind with her time to educate me, and I'm sure it's frustrating for her
no.
to try and tell me what
Yeah.
the answers to the questions I'm asking.
This is similar to my feelings on the discretionary trustee role with Pat, that I stepped down for that reason. So I am extremely sympathetic to your discomfort. Go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, so Mark, and you probably remember this. George Collins, who, God rest his soul, was a very active member of the Silver Lake Regional School Committee, was the treasurer. He, when he was alive, had an office at the administration building and came there nearly every day. He did the payroll, he worked on everything. He went to every single closed-door meeting that had anything to do with fiscal responsibility. He and Dr. Squasher worked closely together. Today I talked to Christine about it a little bit. She remembers George. I knew George personally. He was from Plimpton. He actually got very sick and passed away, and I stepped into his seat. So it has to be 20 years ago since we lost him. I contacted his daughter today and asked her to please make a list of the things that she remembered that her dad did. She was also a teacher here at Silver Lake. She had a vivid memory of it. She sent it to me. I sent it to Jason. I made 10 copies of it and left it on my printer. The situation over the years, that what I see is that we've robbed Peter to pay Paul to keep the education going, the valuable education that we give our children. And we've taken it from every other place. And we continually badger our administration, our staff, our teachers to do more for less, because we're trying to meet the master of everybody. We can't do it anymore. If it was 20 years ago and we had a treasurer that was not only in-house, there was a hired person that came, Jean Richards from Kingston, who came and did that other type of thing. We certainly weren't over a $20 million budget 20 years ago. What are we thinking? So for $6,000 or $10,000 now, we're being irresponsible not to do it. We're taking down light poles because we're worried about liability. This is a huge liability.
Well, in the audit, it is different to go to a finding.
Oh, definitely.
That's a different level.
Right.
That's
Management level is housekeeping related.
yes.
We're not thrilled with the way you're doing it, we understand the way you're doing it.
Agree, we can live with it, we don't like, we're not loving it, we can live with it. My God, I can't tell you how many audits and annual reports I've gone through in my prior existence. a finding is,
Significant.
yeah,
And we
yeah,
don't have any findings.
yeah, but you don't want any.
No.
Yeah, agreed.
So, again, I believe with the retirements, it's a small amount of money. I believe we could fit that into that. I mean, we're talking 6,000 to 10,000.
And we would design it around what the auditors are saying are the things that must be,
To meet those high-level needs of the auditors,
yeah,
define the position to meet those needs.
right, to satisfy their recommendations to avoid going into a finding level of audit.
Yes.
Highlights.
Christine, that person would obviously have to be bonded, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. As the treasurer and assistant treasurer who are bonded, that person would also be bonded. They would be the signature on our bank accounts. They would be the person dealing with that piece of our business.
My point, I know I joke with you every time I apply the application. We need it because this was, I was shocked that they didn't get gone.
So that role would be bonded as well.
So are we looking for a motion to add this position?
I'm just sort of giving a presentation at this point in terms of the budget, and we'll get to it. I believe with the 4 retirements, that 6,000 to 10,000 is a very small amount of money. It's really more if the committee was interested in funding it.
I think we're
believe we
absolutely
could make it work within those 4 retirements.
And this one has an interesting nuance because it's not just budget. This is fiduciary as well. So
Exactly.
if the committee wants to jump, I'm not going to say it's a jump ahead. If the committee feels this is an important thing and we want to make a motion now.
I move that we,
Fund it.
what?
Just move that we fund it.
We move that we fund this and pursue it with the background that we had and what the person is required to do.
Second.
Before I take a vote on that, I'm going to ask that that be edited a little bit. I'm going to say we create it around what the auditors feel is necessary now, what the role is.
I'd like to also review what was done in the past practice of it.
Past practices 20 years ago, we're light years different in
Sure, okay,
what's
that's
happening.
fine.
I think if we fund it in the discussion part of this motion, under the budget, that's as far as we need to go, as far as
I
creating a
agree.
job description for it and deciding what the assistant, we need an answer to whether the assistant is just as liable as the treasurer.
Yeah,
And I don't
we
think
need some
anybody in this
answers.
committee should be financially liable. In that case, I would ask the administration to propose a candidate to be the assistant in the event you need a signature for that event, in case your treasurer's not available. That we need to rewrite our position here on the committee to audit and monitor our accounts, because I think the committee needs to oversee those, but not be involved in the transaction.
But we need to find out what the actual, what's going on.
Yeah.
Correct?
Right, but that, right now, we're talking about the budget, we just need to say, let's fund
Let's fund
$6,000.
it. Let's fund it.
Anyway.
Well, we could actually explore, we could hold the assistant treasurer discussion until we find out what's going on with it, rather than motion it. I'm happy either way, to be honest with you.
So the
But very
motion
important.
is to fund the new position.
That's it. Put it on the agenda.
What? Of treasurer that works for the school committee. Somebody second that.
Okay, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody, nay, abstain? No?
Don't you do
Okay.
No. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank
That's
you.
a big
Thank you
one.
for your support.
I-
That's great.
I love
Thank you.
everything you've said so far, Joy.
Okay.
Keep going.
Then I'm going to keep talking
Keep
then,
going.
okay? Okay, great. So there's a few other things that, again, we haven't put in the budget. I'm just going to bring them up because what I have learned from being in the district for 12 last year, we did ask about adding 3 coaching positions. Again, I'm not sure we can fund them, but just for your information, one was the girls freshman lacrosse coaching. The second was an assistant swim coach, and the third was a girls freshman volleyball coach. The numbers that are in my executive summary may not be 100% accurate because I'm looking at them and I think I'm a little bit off on that. I have to say that in a conversation with Martha, she was concerned that we have equal programs for boys and girls, and that was her main focus on the reasons for recommending these. Of the three of them, the one that I think is probably the greatest priority, if I may, and this is from a conversation with Martha, is an assistant swim coach. We only have one swim coach, and we have kids in a pool, and it is a tremendous amount of responsibility. It would be grand if we had an official assistant swim coach. I do consider that one probably of the three the greatest priority. But all three would be wonderful.
Joy, what were the other two? I'm sorry.
It's in my executive summary, but it is the girls freshman lacrosse coach,
Oh, okay.
girls freshman volleyball coach,
Yeah.
and an assistant swim coach. Those would be the three that we asked for last year. We did not fund them. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you, and I apologize, whether boosters funded some of them or whether people volunteered. I'm not 100% positive.
Point about the swim coach, I gotta say, my son is on the boys team. When they're at a meet, it's not just one team that one coach is handling. He's handling two teams, the girls and the boys. And to be honest, it can be pretty hectic.
Oh, I'm sure.
At the swimming pool.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ed.
It's something that really needs to be considered, so that it's not just that,
Right,
but
absolutely.
I'm just.
No, thank you. Thank you for supporting it.
Yeah.
That's great.
My thoughts would be to support the swim coach and not the other two this year.
My question, I think, Joy, you may have answered it because you said you weren't sure, but with the freshman lacrosse and girls freshman volleyball, are they volunteer coaches? I know they have a team for the freshman girls, or they did.
We'll call you.
Boys don't have a freshman team.
I think they're partially funded by boosters this year,
Okay,
So the boosters have to pay.
but the swim team doesn't have anybody.
right.
So
Oh, I
what is
agree
it?
with Mark about.
How much is it?
It's approximately 2,000. I apologize, this is not an accurate figure. It's approximately 2.
He just told me where it was, page 4. Section 4.
Don't get me wrong, I am
Oh, there's a
very
backside.
interested for.
Yeah, I agree.
I see the need for it.
Right. So again, I'm just sort of doing a broad stroke overview at this
Right.
point, but I just wanted to give you some of the background for the question. The other thing that I think is really important for our towns, and just so you're aware, is our assessment percentage shift. Again, we can't control where the children are coming from, the towns, and the different percentage shifts. Certainly Kingston has felt the brunt of that when they've had a growth of percentages. Currently, however, Kingston is going to be happy. They have a decrease in their percentage of students of 0.8%, which is going to be pretty substantial. Halifax decreased its percentage 0.1. However, you do the math, it gets it up 0.9 of a percentage point is Plimpton. So for Plimpton, this is going to be a pretty heavy hit. Yep, it's going to be a pretty heavy hit for that. We have been talking, and we just had a safety facility fees and revenue, fondly known as SAFER or SUFFER, depending on which you're in, subcommittee prior to this meeting, and we just talked about voting our capital plan. So next month, I will bring forward the capital plan after I do a little bit of cleanup of the plan, and I send it out for a final review with the committee, but we'll talk about that next month. And let's see. After my presentation, there's a write-up that both Michaela and Jim did, which was very well done and thanks for the programs. Another piece that is new in the budget this year, and I think you'll hopefully find it helpful, and it actually took a lot of work because we have a lot of programs at the high school, is we did a textbook inventory. So it was one of the things that I had put down as one of my goals. So we did inventories at all the elementaries, and then on the middle school and the high school, we did a textbook inventory. So it gives you the copyright year, so you have a sense of where we're at, what some of our needs are, and what some of our programs are. So I'm hoping that you'll find this helpful. So there's both a high school and a middle school textbook inventory.
Very helpful, thank you.
After that is the write-up from Steve Pello. The front side is the high school, and the back side is the middle school, and it explains his requests, and again, he did do a presentation. We now have budget version 1. We're coming up out of the water, we're breathing the air, everything is good. So I did a sort of a summary at the front, just to help you understand our budget. And it's a summary of the major increases in the version 1 budget. So the top section of the summary is all the fixed costs. So the increase of personnel for all steps and lanes is $509,989. Retirement contribution and Medicare, $44,007. Transportation, $39,491. These are our fixed costs. These are the ones I can't do anything about. Insurance, health, life insurance, we did a 10% increase for the health, which is our biggest part of our insurance costs. Each 1% is $28,933. The overall increase in insurance is $188,626. The reason why it isn't exactly $289,330, which would be 10%, is because some other insurances went down, believe it or not. So Christine did the math out. Did I get that right? It was great. In terms of day-to-day operations, we did a summary of the big increases. By the way, the total fixed cost increase is 80% of the budget. 80% of the budget. Those are the things we can't control or change. So when we keep making these cuts, it is very difficult for us to maintain some of the buildings because those are the fixed costs. In terms of day-to-day operations, our percentage increase for additional textbooks beyond last year's textbook was $12,332. For technology is $65,880. The reason why that's high is if you remember, Steve Pello came and he gave you two costs for Chromebooks. One was with that $30,000 increase where Dell had the insurance. It simplified the life. It's a better program. It saved a tremendous amount of time. We put in the higher cost, okay? So if we needed to, we could go back to the way we're doing it. It would be a savings of $30,000.
Let's get another question. I don't remember if I asked this or if it was discussed when he did his presentation, but so what he was talking about is obviously purchasing and doing that self-insurance through Dell. And then would we still collect the money from the parents?
Yes.
So that could offset this?
Yes.
And we had an incentive program for them to pay up front.
That's
which
right.
was going
We
to
did
cover the
talk about
entire budget item.
Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't throw it out.
Yep, it could,
Took
it
that
could. We just put in the larger amount because again, this is new to us.
And what's the difference? What?
30,000. Yep, and there's a little bit of a write-up on the bottom of Steve's page, which is the last page before that. It's on the front part of the page.
Joy, quick question. The figure that's here on this one page for the technology, is that the same figure that we were talking about in the capital plan?
No.
It's a different.
No, totally different. This includes the increase for the Chromebooks if we did the 30,000 insurance.
It's just so close to the same.
I know.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of playing with it.
Thanks for clarifying.
And then equipment increase is $45,897, and those are some equipment pieces that are needed within the buildings. Some of it is athletic equipment, floor copiers, equipment needed within the buildings.
AV equipment.
AV equipment.
As we get into this, is it possible to have something that breaks it down a little bit more? To just say, is that what this is?
This is just a quick
summary.
summary, and then the full budget is behind.
Perfect, thank you.
So the total day-to-day increases, yep, I'm sorry. Jim? you have a question?
Well, I think as soon as you finish this, I have a question.
Okay. So the total day-to-day operation increase is 13%, and the total overall major increases is $906,222. The $69,000 is all those other little increases, little percentages here, there, and everywhere else, which is 7%. The difference from FY18 budget to FY19 budget is $975,780. Again, the fixed cost increase at the top is over 80% of the increase of the FY19 budget. So this is sort of, again, just a summary. I don't know if you find this helpful or not. I think it's easier at a quick glance to look at it.
To Eric's point, is there anywhere in here that there's a real rough summary on revenues at all? That offsets them?
Revenues, no.
On that one particular line or in general?
Well, in general, I guess I would say that this one line just brings it up.
We don't stop that until we get the governor's numbers.
February.
Just because that's such a different basic how we fund our budget.
Well, I should say internal revenues more than external revenues.
He's talking about the insurance fees that the parents are paid in school directly.
Is it just the insurance?
No, I mean, just not necessarily insurance, we also have the energy.
I have not had a chance to.
Things
even
that
address those
we are generating some revenue from that do go towards.
I have not had a chance to address those to update them.
Okay.
That's something that I traditionally look at is when we measure governance numbers, and we stop looking at the funding piece of our budget.
It's a real broad summary, because this is really good, because this is just a real picture of what we're doing.
One thing I mentioned to Joey earlier is that our net metering revenue that we received, we're just about hitting $1 million since we started the program.
I want to make sure, does everybody hear that? It's astounding. And that's to date. Yeah, to date.
We started in May of 2014.
Yep.
To date.
That's because of all the hard work the administration and the
Well,
board has done on this.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure you heard this. The net metering, I don't know, Jason, if you heard this or not, the net metering, since we put it in 2014, we're just coming up to having raised $1 million. And I have to tell you, there's somebody in this room who's smiling down on us, and that's Joe Shaves. Because Joe Shaves fought tooth and nail. I think we did that bloody contract 6 times.
Oh my God.
I don't know how many times we had to go through and sign it. And we have raised almost $1 million. I mean, I'm almost crying. We went for this with the expectation of $75,000 a year. That's all we thought we were going to get. And it has turned into $1 million over almost a 4-year basis. It is astounding. It is astounding. So, and again, you know, it's Joe. Joe was the believer. He was the mover. He was the one who fought to get it in.
And that's why our capital plan has been able to move forward year after year.
Yeah.
And it's still at the point where we're only $30,000 away from the 5%.
Yeah, no, it's been a huge boom for us.
How much is it this year, Christine, do you anticipate?
I don't have that number on the top
That's
of my
fine,
head. I don't wanna-
probably around 250.
It's trending to exceed what I had budgeted for.
That's great.
We're starting to see a little bit of a decrease, which happens, I think, was it 5%?
Per year, well, 0.5% per year degradation of the plant, so you're not creating quite as much energy as you were. And then right now, I don't know if you've noticed, there are some solar fields, the snow is frozen on them, so they're not generating anything, so this may not be the best month.
Yeah, so we've peaked. We've peaked on an annual
Not
basis.
necessarily.
We may have already hit the highest.
Yeah.
Hey, Joy,
Yes,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If you'd entertain a motion to send a nice letter to Mrs. Chase, letting her know the
You know,
kind of
that's a great
sentiments
idea.
that Joy, it was actually Maureen who thought about it, but
that's a great idea, thank you. I'd
Well,
love to
I mean,
do that.
you know, she should know, the family should know that, you know,
I would
his
absolutely
efforts.
love to do that.
Yeah.
I do
And
so
can we
much.
also thank the person who brought it to our attention, Mary O'Donnell, get her a letter, please, and thanks with those numbers in it, please?
I'll accept the friendly amendment to the motion.
I was interrupting you for that.
Is there a second then?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Marcus wants a letter with the solar stuff.
Yeah. I know.
How she found it.
So that's sort of a quick summary of the categories. And then next is the actual budget. And again, this is our new program. This is the way that our new program brings up our budgets. So you have the 14-15 actual numbers. You have 5 columns. You have 15-16 actual numbers for comparison. 16-17 actual. 17-18 is what we actually have in our budget right now. And then our proposed budget is 18-19. The final column is the percentage change. Okay, so just so you sort of have a background. So the first 2 pages, the first page front and back, I'm sorry, is a summary of all the different categories. So you can sort of take a minute and look at where the percentage increases are. And again, we sort of did a quick summary on the page before explaining it. The pages behind go into the detail. So if you have, transportation or athletics and food services, maintenance, utilities, it breaks out the utilities, gas, electric, telephone, etc. So it's sort of the breakout of them. Our budget for first draft, and again, this is first draft only, please nobody faint, is 3.97%. 3.97% increase. Okay, that is the bottom number on the page. So that is our current draft version 1 increase.
which does not include the assistant superintendent position or?
I didn't even bring it up. The administrative review had mentioned that that was a position they would be in. And again, I did put it in my write-up. I didn't even obviously verbally mention it. The positions I did mention, though, I do believe if we just maintain the salaries of the 4 retirees in the budget, as if they stayed here, we can meet all of our additions or changes.
Was the ability to find out about the retirees part of the effective new contract?
Exactly, thank you. One of the things that we did as when we negotiated the new contract was we put in an incentive to ask people to let us know by November 1st if they were going to retire. And we received 4 letters, so thank you. It worked beautifully. It made my life, Christine's life, our ability to dream and hope for different things so much better. Previously, what would happen is I would call the SLEA and have you heard anything? Please, could anybody hear? Please. And that's how we sort of found out. And eventually somebody would, but it was really sort of down my hands and knees. Please, I don't want to cut teachers. Do you have any idea? So
Did you hear that, Maureen?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
No, what's talking?
No, the part of the reason we know about the retirees is because of the change in the contract.
And I had a quick question. You just mentioned the middle school. Do we have anyone at the high school that's interested?
Not in writing.
Okay.
And the
Good job,
incentive
Jim.
was gone. The incentive
Good job.
was just up till November 1st, they had to let us know. We may have some people who retire, but at this point I have nothing in writing. I've sort of learned the hard way. I have to have it in writing. So, anyway, I wasn't anticipating tonight, and I know you're probably starting to go a little blank on me. I've talked a lot, but you have all the budget. You have all the budget information there. And then, again, next month, we're going to do the PowerPoint, and to Jim's point, we'll be talking about revenue. That's the PowerPoint. We're always going to the assessments and what it will actually cost per pound. We then have a tab for budget version 2, which will obviously be after you let me know, and the towns let us know how they feel about it. Capital plan, hopefully we'll have that in next month. And then in section 9, and the reason why I'm actually taking you through this is I want you to look at the pictures because I love them. So I want you to turn the pages so you can get to see
Can I
them.
ask what before you get off of that one?
Yep.
Special ed was not in this budget?
The 2 programs,
Well, I'm just saying, right now, you're looking at regular day at 3.97?
yep.
Period. Okay.
That's the full budget.
With special ed increases.
Yeah,
That's 25 million.
All right, I was trying to find the line item that says special ed. Is it
It's-
separated as special ed or not?
The last couple of categories, if you look at the end of that 2-point sheet,
Thank you very much.
401.
Yes.
So, speaking to contingency funds available for special education, plus, minus, this could be a week, but I'm just saying it. I know it, the towns look at a school budget, but we always want to try to have contingency funds available to take care of that revolving thing at the elementary level.
Right.
And that's why I'm just trying to see what the impact is. So it's a negative.
So again, just to sort of have you take an opportunity to look and appreciate the students' incredible artwork. Then we have Planning for Success. I love the monkey. I'm in love with the monkey. It's the cutest thing ever. So Planning for Success is the program that we went through and we had the state come in. And it's really how we built our budget. It's really our goals as a district. It's our focus on the social and emotional growth of all of our students. It's why we're trying to bring in the programs that Marie has talked about. It's bringing in that BRIGHT program at the high school. It's making the best use of our funds available to provide for our students. It's meeting the needs of diverse learners. So this is our one page. We actually were asked, and we did a presentation at the MASC conference because they thought our plan was such a good plan. So we did a presentation at the conference based on it. So that's that one pager there. So the back is sort of the sunset of our football. So with the budget programs that I would like to talk to you about, how we could go forward with them. So Marie Grable did a presentation in November about adding those 2 programs.
All those in favor?
There are 2 ways that I'm aware of we could fund them. One of them is we could put them in the budget. Okay, they are not currently in the budget, which I think is probably the question you were getting at, Mark. Or we could fund them, add them as a revolving fund. So if we did it as a revolving fund, they would be tuition-based, they would be based on the students that are there. there's good and bad to both options. So if you don't mind humoring me, I'm just going to talk a little bit about it just for a couple more minutes, and I apologize, I'm talking so much tonight.
No, do not apologize.
That's
We
your job.
need all of this discussion.
Okay, so here's sort of our...
I still loved everything you said. so-
Okay, great.
Next year you should have an audio version of that.
I know, I'm thinking about it. So, if we were to do a revolving program, it would be self-sustaining, it would be tuition-based. So let's just pick some numbers to make it easy. So the program at the middle school, we would need to hire a teacher. Let's just say 55,000. We would need to have an aide, 20,000, 75,000. We wouldn't pay rent, because, right, it's our school, right? So we wouldn't be charged rent. There may be some supplies. Let's round it to 80,000, just to have
benefits.
Okay? Yep, and then we have benefits. And then we have benefits, let's say another 12,000. So we're at 92,000. If we had, say, 9 students, each of those 9 students would be billed back to their town. So if 5 were from Kingston, 3 were from Halifax, and 1 was from Clinton, they would be billed out. It's sort of a zero-sum accounting. It's tuition-based.
Well, that's what we've been doing.
That is what we've been doing. That works. The other option would be, we could put it in the budget. Now, there's good and bad to this, okay? The bad is, I would be very concerned that the towns would be concerned about the increase in the budget, and if we have to cut, we may have to sacrifice regular day programs at the cost of special ed. If the towns were willing, and I don't even know if this is possible, I came up with this today, so I apologize because I'm sort of out of the box. I know Christine's not happy with me, but I'm going to say it anyway, because she's still going to love me. Is on the elementary level, we separate out and vote separately special ed.
Yeah.
So if we did the same thing for Silver Lake, and we were held harmless for special ed, it's just a thought. Mary's looking at me about the same way Christine's been looking at me. We could vote the special ed hold harmless the regular day, and we would just have our special ed programs out of there. They wouldn't be tuition-based. They would be Silver Lake programs. Certainly makes accounting for my poor friend, sped director, who his head spins. I mean, it's an accounting nightmare, to be honest with you. We do it though. You know, I don't really know what is best.
On the town meeting
No,
president.
Mary, I'd love to hear.
Just logistically, we don't vote for components of your budget, we vote assessment.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Right. You know, that's the piece that you kept trying to say, and I didn't understand it until she said it.
Should have used 7 words.
The audience over the committee again.
Yeah, you're right.
She took the
That's
audience
that's
before the
you know that's
committee.
exactly what she kept saying. Okay, so that's a terrible
Mark.
idea, but it was a great
Mark.
concept.
Mark, I did not realize you were trying to ask or say
Okay,
something before.
we're all set.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I had in my head that we could do it separately, but you're right, we couldn't do it that way. Okay, never mind. I was
We'll think
thinking,
about it.
I was
Think
thinking,
about it.
it was a great idea though,
It's a
wasn't
good
it? It was
idea.
really
We'll think
creative. So I would love to be able to, because these programs impact our elementary budgets. We literally have these students now. So we've done, and we've built them into our elementary budgets. We know these students are there. So if the committee was willing to vote this evening on us establishing these programs, it will make our budget building in all 4 districts much easier. So
And
I
over
don't.
time less.
Exactly, yeah, because it's really sort of time sensitive trying to pull all these budgets together. It sounds like the committee would prefer to go the revolving route, but I don't know the answer to that.
Let's,
What
what are your thoughts?
what I'm saying is when you make a presentation at town meeting and you talk about budgets, it's important to understand the impact of the special ed part of the school budget. And whatever makes it easier to stand up at town meeting and explain that. So again, there's a situation that we have to be conscious of amongst our special ed, that we can't cause these budgets to go up and down and have people pay kids that are on special ed, or vice versa. So I think it's important to break out the numbers so that the voter understands where that money's coming from. Again, this speaks to having a special education contingency fund, either at a town level or at a regional level, so that we can dampen out this sine wave. and budget with some plan. And,
I agree.
And that's what I was gonna bring up, you know, in the process, so that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. What, go ahead.
I would just like to add, as also being a member of the Kingston Elementary School Committee, our special education costs are going through the roof this year. And happens quite a bit. And it's so important, I think, to be able to develop these programs in-house so that will keep more of our students in district, cost less. Our member towns will pay less. So I would make a motion that we, that's okay, I'd like to make a motion that we create these programs, and I would say revolving funds.
I second that.
Any other discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Abstain.
You're abstaining.
Thank you. I'm really excited. I think they're going to be great programs. I really want to thank Marie. She's worked really hard. I mean, one of the, I don't want to say selling points, but one of the reasons when we were hiring a special ed director, one of the things I was looking for was someone who could help develop these programs. So she's done a fantastic job. Thank you. We developed one program last year, and we're going to continue with some new programs this year. So we're really excited. We're going to keep our students here. They're going to be in their neighborhoods. They're going to be with their peers. It's better for our students. It's more economical. It's more cost effective for our towns. So I mean, it's an absolute win for us all.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
It completely, and I personally have to thank you. The way that you, first of all, what you've brought to this region is wonderful, your ideas and what you've done. Your ability to explain it to us, articulate it to the, the extent that we understand what's happening and the benefits of why we should change to X, Y, Z. I think helps bring a committee to be able to have a discussion like this tonight, vote something like this with ease. I'm going to use the word ease kind of softly, but it's a credit to you that we can do this. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and it's also a credit to the committee for your ability to just sort of be open-minded with all the opportunities that we can creatively present for our students. So I think each and every one of you.
Want to just explain to you why I'm saying I think I have a conflict of interest on this subject. I appreciate what you do very much. But also, separately, because I have a conflict of interest, I didn't have to say that. I don't know if my town is going to be thrilled about this. So, it's hard to say.
Yes and no. Actually, the selectmen personally asked me if we were developing more programs this year at the last selectmen's meeting, so I believe they're 100%. They were looking for more programs. They actually been very supportive.
Huh?
You're back on board now.
Yeah. Well, no, I still have the
So
We know where you're at.
Right. So for the budget, that's pretty much all I had planned to present this evening. I gave you a tremendous amount of information. I know, I'm sorry. So take the book, enjoy it. I'm really proud of the book. Again, I want to thank everybody on my team has played a huge role in helping us put this together. And I think we built a good first draft budget. And I don't know if we'll be good for just going to February. I was looking at a calendar. I know sometimes we set up an extra meeting. I actually couldn't figure out when it's time to have one, but I'm open for ideas. If the committee feels there may be a need for another meeting or not.
Madam Chair, just so you know, I will fight tooth and nail for every item that's going to be taken out of the current budget, so plan accordingly.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing, right? So right now, we're just talking about having the next discussion at the February meeting.
Yep.
And then we're going to move the public voting, the public hearing to March.
No, we'll have
The public hearing in February,
Yep.
and then we'll vote it in March.
Correct.
We don't need to do
You don't think so?
No,
Really?
no, she wants to vote in March.
We have to vote in March.
Right, but this public hearing, do you want this, the next time we're meeting to talk about this, do you want the public
Yes.
hearing that same night?
Yes, I think we should.
I believe that's how we did it last year when we looked it up.
Did anybody come?
No.
Yeah.
Well, the town's team.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I've got a FinCom question.
And I would like to complain about this picture on the back. And I don't want to see our football, Michaela, I don't want to see our football field this dark next year. We need the lights. It's a beautiful picture, but it's too dark.
So the one thing I
Your eyes will watch.
Gotta get to work.
I will let Mark know when we get to summer.
So I get to do the capital plan?
Well, would you like me to, I mean, it's up to you. We're going to bring it forward to the meeting next month, so you could just talk about maybe some of the issues.
I mean, we can read it as a draft.
It's totally up to you. Sure.
Think so?
Yes, for the budget.
You'll read better than I will.
Okay, I'd be happy to. You want to wait till we get to the summer, safer meeting?
Yes.
Here's choice.
Yes. Yeah. I know, that was Freudian. Completely. All right, folks, then do we want to get back into the agenda and move forward? I think the next,
I know, right?
You got your minutes left?
Why are we doing that?
finish Christine. That's a lot of shifting. Yeah, I think we can make it work if you don't mind. Okay. The minutes from last meeting, has everybody had a chance to go with them? Any motion that I can have there?
Big motion to approve the minutes from
Second.
14th.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Alrighty, subcommittee reports. I know, we're fun. Civil Lake Educational Association.
I'm going to keep this again quick. Kim Morrison, SLA president. I'm going to keep it quick because we've already had a long meeting, but also because at the high school we're gearing up for mid-year exams, and I can speak to my colleagues here. We're about maxed out, so we keep plugging away. I think we keep all looking at each other and go, wait, how is it December? Wait, how is it January? Wait, how are we halfway through January? So I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I feel like this year is just kind of flying by, and we're all just trying to adjust and stay on track and hopefully get the kids through as best we can through their mid-year exams. I know if you're walking through the halls after school, you're going to see every classroom is full of kids. And there's a lot of activity everywhere you look if we're trying to get them to do their best. So that's all we have to report until we can get our heads back together after all the reading.
I have something that Mrs. Cahill just shared with me, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Jess. But would you mind sharing what you just told me about the fundraiser?
Sure. Actually, while we were after school with our herds of children, these two lovely ladies popped in and said, would you like to, and I didn't recognize them, and one of the students introduced herself as Olivia Shaves, the niece of Joe. And they had these magnet ribbons. And she said, would you like to buy? And Kim and I just went, yes! And I went to my wallet and I handed her the money, and she said they were $5 each, or suggested donation. And she goes, well, we haven't made them yet. Caitlin's coming home. And I said, so you want me to give you $10 with nothing in return? And I said, you just take it, honey. And so I did say when you get this a little bit more, felt out and together, it's to go to the scholarship fund in honor of Joe. And I guess, Caitlin was supposed to be coming home over this long weekend coming up, and they're going to be kind of hashing it out and ordering they were like the little magnet.
Yeah, we can contact you.
So they're stickers, okay. And so they just are really excited about it, and we suggested that maybe next month they could come and visit at the school committee meeting or give us a statement on their behalf that we could share and present that to you. So good things have been coming.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
So can we make sure we have a spot for that on the agenda?
Duly noted.
Bring your bill forward.
Yeah, bring them all.
Administrative review, next meeting is January 18th. Career and technical ed. I don't think there's been a meeting, Mark's not here. But again, the last time we met, we talked about the Allied Health program. All right, Chairman's report. I have nothing. I will tell you, we did get an acknowledgement from the governor's office for our letter that we sent
putting in your full funding of regional transportation, so we did receive
Can you
that.
pass that around? So we can all see it?
Legislative agents report.
So earlier this year, I mentioned that we had a quarter where the revenues were above board, and there was a plethora of spending up on Beacon Hill, spending all that extra revenue. The Massachusetts Society of Certified Public Accountants believes that that windfall may have been because people were prepaying their taxes, and thinks that there will be a subsequent larger than normal tax refund in the spring, which could offset all of those minor positives we have in the state budget in the fall. Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed Board of Education came up in full support of Chapter 78 being fully funded by the state legislature, and wants the circuit breaker to be funded at the full 75%. We know that their opinion has no sway when it comes to the actual decision of the legislature when the budget's voted on. One thing they do have some control and sway over, though, is the cost for teachers to license themselves. Every 5 years in the state of Massachusetts, a teacher needs to go through the relicensure step, even though once upon a time, licensure in the state of Massachusetts was for life. And in many school districts, teachers have to pay for this out of their own pockets. It's the suggestion of many that this should be something that's funded through the state budget. It shouldn't be a burden on the teachers to have to recertify themselves when they're already jumping through hoops to get the PDPs and the credits to do so as well. So, just wanted to let you know that's in the ether, and I'm disgusted by it.
When do they think that they'll implement that?
Well, they're making the argument that they haven't raised the rates for teachers to recertify since 1998. So they're using that as their leverage point. We haven't done it in 20 years, as if that justifies taking more money from our teachers' pockets.
Yeah, and what are those funds used for?
Those funds are used for administrating that department of licensure.
Thank you very much. I thought I'd highlight that. And this
In other words, it's a
administration we
tax.
got from the government.
Privileged
percentages.
to pay a tax for something that they do.
Exactly.
And many teachers have.
Saving money on that letter. They didn't do a lot of administrating on that.
That's terrible. It's disappointing to hear about the tax prepayment maybe causing that inflated number. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah.
It makes sense, though.
Very hopeful that it's not.
Yeah,
true.
yeah. Oh. Okay, thank you for that.
I'm sorry.
Negotiations, employee relations, safer committee.
You want to bring it up now?
It's up to you, we'll have an executive. It's
Right.
up to you, how do you want to bring it up?
No, we'll do it next month.
Okay.
Nothing to report.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Nothing to report.
Okay. PAC.
No, safer we were going.
We didn't have a meeting last month because
Oh,
of the
never
storm.
mind. I thought you called me.
I'm sorry?
We didn't have the meeting because of the storm.
Oh, okay, thank you. Policy. Coming up on June 22nd.
So the second reading. We're not,
I make a motion to waive the official read.
Are you sure?
I am against that.
Yes.
Because you read really well.
We have to read the letters regardless.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstains, opposed? Okay.
let me see if you're not.
Revolving funds.
Yes, to accept this as a second reading. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You really
The
want to read
alphabet
this?
soup.
Why?
Oh, you are good, okay.
We have to.
This is the eye test.
I
I'm
want
keeping
to see
score.
how he does, let's, because remember last month, he was A, E, I, O, U, did Bob.
Yeah, that's kind of what.
There was a staff on it.
I was good here. I was not as
Wait, let's time them.
unplugged.
Wait till the second hand hits the six.
In Kingston, we went really fast.
Really fast,
She
you did.
read it
Yeah.
very well.
Yes,
You
you
have a
did.
lot to live up.
I make a motion to approve the following policies: ADC, BDD, BDE, BDF, BEDA, BEDB, BEDH, BIA, CE, CH, CHA, CHC, DKC, EBB, ECA, EFC, FA, GBA, GBEA, GBED, GBGB, my favorite, GBI, GBK, GCF, IC/ICA, ID, IHAM, IHAMA, IHBEA, IJ, IJLA, IJOA, IJOB, IMG, JEB, JHD. JICH, JLCB.
Good Second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, revolving funds, pardon me, last meeting. Okay, safer.
Mark, you're up.
You're approved, Ty. You did well on that.
I appreciate it.
Okay, we had a meeting of the facilities and other committee, SFFR there, and we went over the capital budget and made some changes and references. There's still a draft agreement, but I think we should present tonight very briefly just the amounts and what we're looking at, unless there's major discussion on a particular item. And I'd just like to highlight that our planned funding source for this is, as last year, E&D.
Yep,
Okay, it's a separate.
it absolutely will not impact the budget.
And when we get the final math done, we can talk about percentages and all the rest, but right now it's still a draft. If you could, thank you, Joy.
Sure. So on the capital plan, we have it under categories, and I apologize, I didn't realize we'd actually talk about it if we make copies. It's middle and high school repairs, which we've kept on the budget, $200,000. That's the amount that the engineers, Gale Associates, have recommended for us for regular maintenance. We talked about doing a phase one of the ad building, of looking at having an architect come and view our building to make a decision on is it possible to fix it so it's accessible to everyone. I don't think so, but it's an option. Secondly, to build a new one, what the cost would be, and or is there a way to make use of some of our available space, reconfigure within our currently owned buildings. So that would be just to look at those three options. It will help us to plan for the future, is to see what their options and recommendations are. One of the things that we talked about is the lighting on Syracuse Field. The light poles, we had engineers come in and they told us that it was a safety issue and that the poles were very old, they were cracked, they could fall over. So we will be taking those poles down. We just got the quote. So those will be coming down as soon as they're able to come and take them down. At this point, I have sent out a memo. No one is to be on the field, any staff. I've sent it out to the athletic directors, et cetera, custodians, et cetera. We are not to use the field. The good news is it's nobody's using it anyway because it's cold and snowy. But we are in the process of, we will be taking them down. We're going to cut them down to probably about 5-6 feet because we can't really get in the ground right now, so it's kind of frozen. But just so we don't have to worry about anybody being injured and falling over. To replace those lights is a cost of approximately $300,000. We have gotten some viable quotes. It is an extraordinary expense that for what the fields are used for is sort of hard for us to justify. Night football games are fantastic, night soccer games, lacrosse I believe is also done there. It's also used a lot though for practices. For the different athletic events. However, a cost of $300,000 is difficult. The committee discussed it, and what we thought we would try and do is to fund $150,000 of it, and to see if the boosters and some businesses would be willing to help fund the balance. So what we're going to do is the subcommittee, the capital plan, will put up $150,000, and then hopefully we can get some local businesses, some booster clubs to step up and be able to fund the balance. That's our initial plan anyway. One of the things on our upper football field is it needs to be recrowned. The practice field, it's sort of a wave. If you actually go on Google Earth, it's kind of cool. I like to do this with my hand. It's late at night. It actually looks like this. It's actually pretty funny. Not in a good way, by the way. So one of the things that we talked about was to recrown the field. So we were going to hire a company and it would cost $50,000 to bring somebody in to recrown it. Our head custodian came up with a much better idea. I really like this idea a lot. Was we would purchase the loam and the seed and then we would purchase a skid loader to do the work. What that means is the skid loader is 45, the seed and loam is 42. It's about the same cost, but we end up getting the skid loader, which will then allow us to use it for other projects on the field. But most importantly, when it snows, it would give us another big piece of equipment to move the snow. So we will provide cost savings, because what we do now is we hire Nava to come in and help us move the snow. So it would be a good use of something that needs to be done anyway. So the seed and loam is 4,200. Key fob access, the vocational wing and middle school back door, we would like to be able to provide key fobs for the teachers there, especially vocational. They are in and out a lot for the back doors for safety reasons. We would like to replace a Kubota utility vehicle with a Bobcat. That's $26,150. I already spoke about the Kubota skid loader. That's $45,528. We also would like to complete the virtual desktop project, and we need $65,000 to do that. That will allow us to use Windows applications on Chromebook. All of those projects will be $545,878. We can fund that amount from E&D. As you heard, we have 1.294. That amount.
Yep.
So we have enough money in E&D, and we're still left with a good amount. So those are the projects. That's what we're going to move forward to. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup after the meeting today, but that's what you'll be getting next month.
Excellent, thank you.
The one thing I did want to mention, do you want to talk about the current crisis?
I think we can go explain that. So we have, we have three ongoing emergency issues that we've been addressing. They're not, thankfully, not very expensive, but they are out there and they're accumulating. The first one that we discovered, I don't know if this is in time order, but we have a storm drain, 7 storm drains that were collapsing that were restricting the ability to run the buses that we had to repair. Pavement was undermined and the storm basins were crumbling, so those were repaired. We're still trying to figure out what that cost.
It's close to $20,000.
Right, we'll talk about, I'm still looking for the budget, the invoices. The other one was the sewage treatment plant. We have a component that if it fails would cost us, we'd have to sit and pump and not be able to use the facility at all. It's a centrally located component. It's corroded, it's rusted, and it's at a point where its failure is imminent. And if we don't correct it, it could cost us 30 grand just to remediate it while we fix it. So we're trying to get that put together and replace it while the school's empty on the February school vacation. On the polls. And the polls we've already talked about. Attorney has informed us based on the report from Gale and Associates that they have reached a point where their failure is imminent. Even though I personally don't share that view, the committee has like to forward to the full committee a recommendation that they will be removed as soon as possible to not cause a liability to the region.
Absolutely. Those 3 items will run close to $50,000. Those are items that we had not budgeted. We talked about funding sources, and one of the things that the SAFER committee recommended was that we put an article on special town meeting to take it out of E&D.
Right, so we have the opportunity with this window right now, while 3 towns are already producing a town meeting anyway, not to incur additional costs for convening a town meeting. And it makes sense to move this forward so that we can properly finish the budget for this year as we planned, instead of having to shut things down and turn things off prior to the end of June.
Right. And one of the things I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
So we need to move that?
Before we do, Eric?
I have a question. So they're going to be pulling down the lights and there are still working lights on there. You mentioned that there's a company that's interested in those lights, but don't they still have value that we could then bring in that value or work out a deal with whoever's taking it down if they will help us, donate labor or equipment to replace them as well, because they have value. We don't want to just throw them away.
So there was a party that expressed an interest in the lighting that's up there to be used again. So that means they have some value, in which case I'll leave the administration recommendation on how to dispose of them. But they could offset at least the cost of removal if somebody was willing to
or even negotiate with that, did you say it's? Yeah, okay. Right, so whoever, oh, I see, right, okay,
Municipality, they'd be in line ahead of anybody.
right, yeah, no, I'd agree with
Everybody
that.
has to have the same, but, yeah.
So anyway,
Okay.
I move that we take these 3 items, Joy and Christine are going to firm up the final calculations, not to exceed $50,000 to be taken out of E&D to pay for these.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Did you have a comment before we vote?
No, I just wanted to mention the reasons we're looking at E&D, because these things have to be done. They are emergency, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, they have to, all 3 of them have to be done.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
What I was going to say was I actually let both the principals know today that I wasn't going to freeze the budget, but we were a step away. So this is very helpful because, really I was unsure where to find this $50,000. So, at this point, we're going to be very conscious of budgeting going forward, but hopefully, as we always are, absolutely, but especially conscious of it to make sure we get to the finish line. As we've cut the budgets every year, when things like this happen, it is becoming difficult and more difficult to sort of absorb some of these issues. So thank you for that.
And we are going to notify the 3 towns.
Christina and I will take care of that.
Regarding the articles,
Yes. So they'll have a placeholder, they can open warrants on their meetings
we can
next
reach
week.
out to them too.
Can you copy
But
one of that?
even just a notation of the situations
Right.
we're seeing, so there's clear lines.
But if we can do that by noontime on Friday, tomorrow, that would be great. for
Yes,
town
because
council
Monday,
goes home.
well, the other thing is Monday's holiday, so
Right.
the sooner the better. But would you please copy
Usually selectmen's.
Mark
He's
and I
joking about the moon, right?
on the
He's
notifications?
joking about the moon.
He's just talking about Kingston closes at noon.
Oh.
I wasn't counting on that.
I'm sorry? Yeah, well, I know facts, apparently I already did, so. Thank you for that.
Anything else on the subject?
Okay, moving on, school start times.
Yes. Jill has volunteered to help facilitate the school start time subcommittee. A number of things have happened in the past few weeks. We've decided that we're going to hold off until after February school vacation to get together and review where we stand and to decide how to move further on, or if we're moving further on.
Okay. Thank you. Treasurer's report?
First of all, I'd like to again thank the committee for indulging me in trying to get fired from my current job as treasurer.
With pleasure.
Tonight there are 14 regular vouchers circulating the table for $896,093.17. There's 2 payroll warrants circulating the table for $1,469,439.27, for a grand total of $2,365,532.44.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for signing them.
Union 31.
We're going to need to schedule a meeting for February.
Okay.
We will probably try to work it around.
Can we do it the same night? And I'll forego the SFF.
Yeah, we should. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to have it done by February 8th. Yeah. I mean, would we be able to pull off that meeting at 6 before Silver Lake?
I think it would be able to do, I think.
Okay, so tentatively, we might try to have the Union 31 meeting at 6 o'clock on February 8th. That would impact the safer date. I apologize, but the Union 31 might trump it. Is that okay?
No, that's what I just said, we're going to not have you
Okay.
suffer.
Okay.
Why I said that.
Okay. So that would be helpful. So we'll let the, Lisa, would you remind me to let the elementaries know? Got it, thank you.
Alrighty, Christine, you're up.
All right, I know there's been a lot going on tonight, so I'm going to give you my spin. As we look at the financial, there hasn't been that much that's changed since last month, other than the events that we've got, a few maintenance events that have been going on. But the financial has been moving along pretty well, and our budget's been sustaining for the most part. Just a couple of things I wanted to draw your attention to in the technology area on page 2 of the detail. On the bottom half of the page, you'll see some deficits sprinkled throughout the accounts. As the year goes on, there are things that change for the technology department, and some of the priorities and needs may shift. Keep in mind, but for the end of the year, they will stay within the limitations of that whole department. But there is some shifting based on what's going on during the year, so that's been reflected. And then also, something that's been a burden since the beginning of the year, if we look on page 4 of the detail, it's the utility accounts. We've had some significant increases with we knew what the electric rate was, but it's those other costs associated with getting the electricity to us that have continued to rise. For the next year's budget, I have looked at all of those categories to see where we're trending, looked at any price increases or decreases that may be coming up, and made adjustments to the budgets based on that. For the telephone accounts, I have not yet seen any of the savings realized, so I am budgeting for next year based on the way things are happening right now. So I have not made any cuts, hoping that those changes will take place. If they do take place in the next couple of months, we can make those shifts, but I haven't seen it yet. So the budget still is reflective of a year next year similar to this year.
Can I ask a question there?
Sure.
The cuts that, or the decreases, I should say, that we expected to see, where did that idea come from? Whoever was selling us the phone?
Steve Held has been working with a company, a communications company,
right,
that assured him that they could make these changes. There have been some, I'm not as well versed in this area, but there have been some issues because of the type of lines that we have, and those lines that we would still need to maintain. I think you mentioned specifically fax lines and things like that. So the transition is not nearly as smooth as we had hoped it would be.
Okay.
And a lot of the lines that we have from the telephone company, they're not being extremely helpful with identifying all of those lines. So we've had some we know the telephone numbers, we don't know the numbers of all those lines that actually come into our area.
Right.
So we've had some real struggles with that, and that is not yet resolved.
Okay. In the telephone company that's having difficulty or not being responsive in identifying those lines, this is the same company that we're paying?
No.
This is our former
telephone provider.
The prior one.
That is not being as helpful as we would like.
Yeah.
Help us move forward.
Another question.
Sure, go ahead.
So even though these line items are out of budget, have they increased or decreased since we made the change from what they were before?
The utilities?
The telephone.
The telephone.
Okay. No, they're on target for what we thought was the worst case scenario.
But it's still better than it was?
Correct. They're not as bad, I guess they're not as bad as they could have been, but there has not been an improvement because we have not had any of those changes. So it has not gotten worse, but it's there have been no savings realized to create any offsets.
Yeah.
And it's only January, so I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic. There are a few other deficits throughout the budget that we have discussed throughout some previous months, but there have not been any real areas of significant change or concern that have developed. But with the utilities, I did want to mention that every month we're looking at those, and we're looking to see where we're headed. And right now, we're getting into the meat of our winter months, which is our gas usage is like. But we're looking at this every month to see if we need to update them, and we're constantly updating them to reflect where we believe we'll be for the end of the year. That was all I have for tonight. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Assistant Superintendent.
So in your packet, you should have the November-December progress report from me. Also, the 2017 progress reports for both the high school and the middle school, which is required under the Every Student Succeeds Act. And that contains a lot of the information that we already went over for MCAS, so I don't think that bears repeating, but certainly I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about the report card. It was sent out to parents as required, and it's posted to our website as well. And then finally, you have a copy of the professional development schedule to date and its connection to our C plan and its alignment with our goals in that plan. Are there any questions about any three of those, about any of those three? Sorry.
None? Okay. Sure.
Jill isn't mentioning it, but I'd like to mention it. Yesterday, she sent out the winter newsletter, which is phenomenal. It is a huge undertaking. You receive it in your email account. It is 60 65 pages?
No, 35.
35 pages. It just seemed like 65 as I was scrolling through. It's 35 pages. This has been sort of Jill's baby since she started, is putting together these newsletters. It gives you information about each of the schools, our different programs. It shows our student artwork. You know, there's different presentations from our curriculum coordinators from all of our different programs. It is a huge undertaking, and I really wanted to make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to look at it. It is too big to make the copies. I can't really bear to kill that many trees, but it is a wonderful event. And I really wanted to make sure to give her credit for it because she's not even really mentioning it, but it really is a massive undertaking.
Well, there are a lot of wonderful things going on, and I think it's a great opportunity for people to be able to see what's going on in the different schools and to give some insights. But what I particularly love about this edition was the contributions from the art teachers of the students' work to help decorate the newsletter. In the past, I've used clip art or photographs. But this time their art made it especially special, so I enjoyed it because of that in particular, so thank you. But it's really a group effort, pulling it all together and having people make their submissions.
Thank you. Alrighty.
Careful. It's, I said to myself yesterday, what did I step into? An hour later. It's thorough.
It's great. Yep.
Alrighty, you're back on.
Thank you. So I think I certainly did enough with the budget. Hopefully you felt like you knew what the process was in building it. There's just one other thing in your packet, and I'm only giving it to you for informational purposes. At the administrative review meeting, one of the things that we talked about was the amount of meetings that we have. And I had spoken to a staff member who happens to be chair of one of the committees in Old Rochester Regional School District. And she was telling me how they made a decision that...
I don't think we have any more to cover.
We do, we have old business.
We do?
Yep.
Okay.
Last month, I brought up my concern that the principals were here very late every night when we have to get here in the morning for our students.
Mhm.
And I felt it was unnecessary, and I believe a couple of other members did as well, for them to sit through a whole meeting and wait until the end to do their report, when many times they don't need to sit and listen to the bickering that goes on here. So I'd like us to reconsider moving them up in the agenda, and if it's an evening that really it's just stuff that we're going and hashing over, that they be allowed to leave and get a good night's sleep.
I second that.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
All right, can I leave it open for discussion for a moment?
That's what you do.
I'm not opposed to it at all, but we actually didn't ask your opinion. The only thing I will say...
Put us on the spot. You don't want to have to go home early.
The flow of the agenda and the organization, you and I had this conversation already, it is certainly open for, manipulation. It's not etched in stone. It's not something that has to be in any particular order. Having said that, certainly you folks own the buildings and you own your individual schools, and, whatever topics and, discussion is of interest to you, you're certainly always welcome to join and participate in.
Oh, stop it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm next in line for discussion when you're done with your point.
Oh, okay. Can I ask them their thoughts, or do you want to say something beforehand?
I'd kind of like to supersede that because I don't want to put them in that position.
Okay.
I'd rather delineate why we feel it would be wiser to allow them to begin the meetings and then go on their merry way unless there's something else in our discussion that we would need them here for, or they would need to hear.
Okay. Again, I'm completely flexible. I will say that I don't want this idea to in any way make your roles in a diminished sense at all. We don't think that way. That's not where this discussion started from. It started from just the burden that we put on our, I'll finish my statement. The burden that we put on you folks, which we talked about a little bit earlier with the assistant superintendent, additional ones that we've had in the past.
So this comes from the same vein of looking at our schedule and meeting every 6 weeks potentially. It's to take the burden off our administrators in areas that don't directly influence the lives of our children every day in school. I would much rather have our principals be greeting the kids in the morning, energized and ready to go for another day, than to keep them up to 11 o'clock at night and then send them back in for a Friday morning where they're dragging. And I know they both go to work and they put on airs for the students for the benefit of their staff, but I would prefer them not to have to do that. There needs to be a life-work balance. Right.
Completely
I think
agree.
we're obligated to provide that for our staff.
So you have a motion and a second.
Okay. I'm sorry, repeat the motion, if you would, Lisa?
Mrs. Spring made a motion to move the principals up in the agenda.
Okay.
And allow them to leave unless the superintendent feels the need for them to be here for the whole meeting.
Or they themselves, obviously.
Right.
I don't know that that has to be, that's kind of intuitive.
I said allow them to leave. if they want to leave.
Yes, no, and I'm not questioning that, I'm just saying that's intuitive. I don't want the motion to get so detailed that it's,
So you just want up in the agenda?
yeah,
Skip
yeah,
the allowed to leave?
yep.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's, yeah.
Correct.
Because it's given.
I'm not supporting the
Yes.
second on the allowed.
So there's a motion, there's a second. Any further thoughts on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstained, opposed, abstained? No? Okay. Mrs. Gill?
I'm leaving. No. Thank you. So next week will be a very busy week for our students. We have our mid-year exams taking place January 16th through the 19th. Tuesday will be a full day of school, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are half days for our students, which allows our staff time in the afternoon to get all of their assessments graded and updated for our report cards to go out. We provided some study breaks this week for our students in an effort to help alleviate some of their stress and anxiety, to provide them some opportunities to decompress before their exams next week. We had 2 days of a Zen Tango workshop that our art teacher, Hannah Close, ran. It's using art to kind of alleviate stress and explore your creativity. So she did 2 afternoons with that. Vivi Pierce, who is our in-house yogi, she ran 2 sessions of a yoga class for our students. And then we also had the therapy dogs visit on 2 different days for students to swing by and just take a little study break to visit with. So those are all great opportunities for our students. Next Tuesday after school, our National Honor Society is hosting an open tutoring and study session. It's open to any student, but we particularly encourage our freshmen and sophomore students to stop by to get help from upperclassmen. They can bring their study guides, any questions that they have to help review for their exams, and that'll be available from 2 to 3 p.m. here in the library. And then our cafeteria will be providing a warm breakfast to students on mid-year exam days at the cost of $3, which is the lunch cost as well. And so that means that students who are on free and reduced lunch will receive their free and reduced lunch rates if they'd like to get a warm meal before their exam. And the serving times will be from 7 to 7:30 before the 7:30 exam, and then we have a 10-minute break before the second exam starts at 9:10, and they'll have an opportunity to buy a breakfast at that point too if they'd like it. I'd like to recognize Dario Mendez, who one of his pictures is actually featured in the budget binder, but another picture that he took titled Balance won an award and is being featured at the State Transportation Building during the month of February and March. It's a beautiful picture. I'll have to print it out and send it to everybody of a woman almost looking like a ballerina balancing on the couch in the forest. So it's a beautiful picture that was submitted on behalf of Silver Lake, so we're really proud of him. And our Silver Lake robotics team scored really big last weekend while the rest of us were hunkered down trying to stay warm. They ventured out into the frozen tundra and participated in a competition. We have 2 different teams that are led by our teachers here, Mr. Mello, Mr. Aruda, and Mr. Gregory. And one team won the Silver Circuit Award for design, and another team took 2nd place as an alliance captain. I'm not even going to pretend to explain what those are because robotics is a whole different world. But winning these accomplishments puts them in contention for an invite to the state championship, which is huge and would be a first for Silver Lake. I have a couple of course updates as we begin to submit course registration updates for our students. Our guidance counselors will be going into classes to talk about classes for students to take in the next coming year. We will have the middle school parents up next month to talk about what their students should be looking for as they become freshmen here. So as we look to get our program of studies out, we don't have any new courses, but a couple of changes to current classes that I'd like to make the committee aware of. One is our digital photo class, which currently is a CP2 level class. We'd like to change it to a CP1 to really reflect the rigor and expectations that are required of students who take that class. And it's equivalent to our Adobe Photoshop class that we have right now, which is also CP1. So it's trying to make it more in line with that. Another change that we'd like to propose is blending two courses. We have a music and video technology course. Previously, we have a music tech and then a digital communications class. This was a new course that was proposed last year and approved by the school committee. But because of staffing, we really can't run that course anymore. That teacher who we had in mind to run that class is no longer with us. So it's really based on our current staffing to still be able to offer that class. We want to combine the two, and our music teacher, Mr. Doobie, would be able to still offer that to students. It would still be a semester course. There's no changes other than we're sort of combining those two together. And then the last change is really just a name change for our Power Systems class to become Power Systems and Sustainability. Really just broadens the existing course. In addition to wind and solar, it would now also incorporate sustainability and green technologies into the curriculum. So I will send all of those requests to our assistant superintendent to be reviewed as well, so we can get those into our program of studies.
Okay. You have sent those, or you will be?
I will.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
I just received them from Mr. Pasqua, so I will get all that paperwork over, and then I believe it will go to you next.
Okay.
Yep. I have a field trip request for out of state on behalf of Kelly DePasqua. Our high school choral festival takes place at Providence College on February 23rd, 2018, pending any snow. This is a wonderful opportunity for our music students to travel and work with college professors and gain that insightful experience to build their musical repertoire. And it's no cost to students, but it is out of state, so we would be able to provide transportation to them through a grant from the PTO.
Wonderful. Okay. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed, abstained? Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And lastly, I'd also like to ask the committee to accept a donation that was proposed to us right before Christmas break. A resident of Plimpton came into the school, Christine Blint, and on behalf of her mother, Marilyn, who's retiring and moving to Florida from Plimpton, she wanted to donate enough money to pay off any balances that students may have had with our cafeteria. So the total amount comes to $75, so I'd like to ask the school committee to accept that donation.
Motion?
Thank you.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you, and I'll make sure we send her a thank you, but I thought that was
Yeah.
a nice thing to do,
That's
especially
nice.
before the holidays.
She did the
Very
same thing
thoughtful.
for Dennett Elementary School.
That's great.
That's great, yeah.
That's a nice thought.
So, that's all I have tonight, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Jim, you're up.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is parent-teacher conferences. So we have our parent-teacher conferences coming up for this quarter. They're actually coming up on February 6th, 7th, and 8th. We start our pick a time where they pick their times to meet with our teachers. So we're going to start sending information out on that to our parents on January 21st. And then the system will open on Sunday, January 28th at 7 p.m., which then allows them to pick either of those 3 days in the afternoon or the evening event, which is again parent-teacher conferences on that Thursday. And that's parent-teacher conferences that are coming up. Our VEX robotics team at the middle school has also gone and competed on Saturday. The 2 Silver Lake Middle School VEX robotics teams competed at the Southeastern Regional VEX robotics qualifier. Competed against 18 high school teams and 4 other middle school teams. And one of our robotics team performed well and went to the semifinals, and where they were eliminated, but they made it to 3rd place. So we're excited about that, and students are doing very well, and excited about the robotics team. We have our National Geography Week coming up on the 22nd. That's where our students get to compete and move on, and they continue to move on So, and I'll just talk about the history bee, which I've talked about. So we're waiting to see who qualified for the regionals, because that just happened in December. And last year, we had 4 students that qualified in the National History Bee that went all the way to nationals, competed against the best in the nation. And this is a similar event. And we're excited about our academic events and our students that participate in it. So stay tuned. I'll let you know how things go between those 2 bees. On our music side of town, we have the Providence Bruins coming up. So that's where our chorus will perform the national anthem live on the ice prior to the Providence Bruins game at Dunkin' Donuts Center Arena on January 19th, right before the puck drops. So it's a wonderful opportunity to watch our students to perform at a live venue. All chorus students are invited to participate, and they sing in front of 8,000 to 10,000 people. And it's really an exciting event. They go down to where the hockey players are, and they go in a room, and they prepare to get ready, and then they walk out on center ice. It's really nice. It's a really nice event. So that's happening on the 19th. Program of study edits. So I passed this out again. I passed it out last time. Passed it out again. There was just one minor change from last time to this time, and that's the tech electives. So the engineering elective, automation and robotics, is going to be grade 7. And the applied STEM will be grade 8. That just has to do with our Project Lead the Way certifications for our current tech teacher. Everything else is exactly the same. And those courses are exactly the same. It's just a matter of where we're off.
So we're looking for a motion on this tonight, right?
Yes.
Yes. I move that the proposed provision of the program of studies presented by the principal of the middle school be moved and accepted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. The last thing on the agenda is I just passed out a quick overview of our master schedule timeline, just to kind of give you a view of what we're in, what process we're in. So program of studies is obviously on, because that's our core piece. What we will do moving forward is we'll start our course selections with our current 7th grade. We then go down in February and meet with each elementary school with their 6th grade teachers, talk about our courses, our programs, and so that they can then convey some of that information to the elementary students and parents. We then meet with the elementary parents, which is our grade 6 parent information night, which is in March. And then we send out the course selection sheet to the elementary parents. And again, this year, our plan, as it has been in the past few years, is that we would then have students placed on team prior to Step Up Day, which is a big transition for our students as they come in from the 3 separate towns, so they can actually meet the teachers that they're going to be with the next year and meet the students that they're going to be with next year. Again, that is an optimal opportunity for our students to then make that transition in the summertime seem less anxious, because they've made friends from the other towns, they've made friends with some of the other students with activities, and they've met their teachers, and it really eases that transition. So again, it is our intent to make sure that that happens prior to Step Up Day, so that day really has a meaningful day for our kids and for our teachers. And then again, our plan is to pass out our schedules down to elementaries and our own students on the last day of school. The students can go home with their actual schedule. And we found that, you know, as we've talked to our students, that transition, that those things that we do have really eased that anxiety. And we used to get a lot of calls in the summertime. Like, who am I going to be with? I know I met this teacher, but am I actually going to be with that teacher? I met this person. Are they actually on my team? So we used to get those calls in the summertime, a lot of anxiety about what their schedule is. So this does a lot of good and relieve that anxiety for our 3 sending towns. So that's our plan. So I want to pass that out so we could just touch base on it.
Wonderful.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All righty, folks. Important dates, Martin Luther King on Monday, no school, and next school committee meeting February 8th at 6.
There'll be a public budget hearing.
And public budget hearing, yep.
And tentative union meeting at 5. Union 31 at 5.
Right, yep. All righty, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We don't need one, right?
What?
We don't need an executive session?
We have to list it. So
Yeah,
we'll go to next month.
yeah.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
Second?
Somebody needs a second, so
Second.
go home. Jim second. Jim second, last vote, his last vote.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.